And now, Podtendo presents Side Quest Cinema.
Scary Halloween edition. Hey guys, welcome to a very special spooky episode of the Podtendo podcast. This is a Side Quest Cinema, so we're going to talk about movies for some reason on a retro video game podcast. That makes sense. We also, you know what the scariest thing is? Trying to manage time loads for a month, so that's what's really scary about today's show. We're going to talk about two scary movies in honor of Halloween. Happy Halloween, everyone. I'm your co-host, Mick. This is my co-host,
Tyson.
Nice, all right. I got an energy drink because I was joking about the time code, but the more I sit and talk about it, the less time we have to talk about these fun movies. Obviously, off the top, double feature tonight. What we're going for, I think what we're going for is kind of like a classic drive-in movie double feature where you get kind of more of the kids movie up front that's still a little bit horror themed, and then you get the scarier movie on the back end. Historically, we did Flintstones Jurassic Park at a drive-in.
Yep, we did.
Nice. All right.
In a Jeep. So that wasn't
next to a train tracks, and a train came rolling by. I think apparently I spent lots of time in the bathroom that night. It happens, Mom.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I had a safety blanket at the time, so I was hiding under that for most of it.
I wonder if that's the first time we saw Jurassic Park, because that would be scary. Anyways, without further ado, I guess we'll get into the movie. So we have to start with, this is a Rutschman family. I don't know if I've ever said our last name before. Oh, man. Our family classic? Halloween classic, would you call this movie? Ernest Scared Stupid.
Yeah. Well, I think Halloween's kind of a special time for everyone, and in our family, we kind of always took it really serious, and Mom always made us costumes and went over the top, and Dad always hauled us around in the minivan mover, so it was a good time. It was a good time, and I mean, for us, being out in the middle of nowhere, it was kind of like, okay, go trick-or-treating all your neighbors, and you're they're so far apart, I can only hit 3 houses if I go by myself.
Yeah, true.
So you definitely need some wheels just to cover some ground. But
very, very true. Why did you specifically pick this movie? So we're starting with Tyson's entry as the more kind of family-friendly, kid-friendly version. So this is the first movie in our doubleheader. Tyson, why did Ernest Scared Stupid get your nod when you could have chosen from any Halloween-themed movie in the world?
I don't know. I think just kind of this thing's got nostalgia, and it's silly, and it's fun, and it's I have memories of this scaring me because the troll was slimy and gross looking, and ran around and turned kids into wooden dolls and stuff, and I have vivid memories of this movie, and it struck at the right time for me. So this was just a classic from our childhood, and I just had to go for it. So
wow. To buy this on DVD, it would cost you $50. What the heck? Ernest Scared Stupid. Saves Christmas only $10. I have a copy of this somewhere. Actually, I think I have this Halloween 3-pack or something of triple features of Ernest Goes to Camp and Goes to Jail and Scared Stupid. I don't know where it is, though, and that's disappointing.
Yeah. Well, and it's, I think it does kind of pop up from time to time in whatever Walmart, those multi-pack DVD things, but really,
I don't know if it does now.
Searching for all of them,
but based on the fact that a Blu-ray of this movie is going to cost you $130, I don't know if it is. I think it might be out of print or something like that. So unless they have another release, also don't invest money on rare movies. That's a bad investment. So without further ado, though, that's why Tyson chose it. It's expensive. Let's find out the vital details and get into this film. So it's directed by John Cherry. That's the Canadian enemy coming out. I apologize. Distributed by Buena Vista Pictures. It was released October 11th, 1991. Runtime was 91 minutes. Budget was $96 million. Box office $14.1 million. And the cast included Jim Varney. Apparently that's all that was written down. So that's hilarious. All right.
Yeah, it was basically a movie that they had probably a short script for. Jim Varney was making a ton of movies at this time.
Yeah.
I think this was kind of in between his runs, but he just kind of struck comedy gold. If anyone doesn't know who Ernest is, just YouTube it.
Yeah.
and like I'm pretty sure this movie's on there now. So if it is, and I don't know if someone lost the rights or didn't do anything with it or whatever.
It must, yeah. It must just be in purgatory.
Might have fallen under public domain. So
yeah, it must be in like weird purgatory, and it just like it exists on YouTube, and no one's copyright claiming it, and that's why they're not making DVDs. So at some point, it will get taken down, and you can buy DVDs for $10. That's probably how the world will work. So development details. Let's find out more about this fun film before we get into it, shall we?
Absolutely.
All right, this is the 5th film to feature Ernest P. Worrell as a character. It was shot in Nashville, Tennessee. Due to the modest $14 million box office, Disney did not pick up the option to continue making Ernest movies. All the sequels were direct-to-DVD releases. Its opening credits features a montage of clips from various horror and science fiction films, including Nosferatu, White Zombie, Phantom from Space, The Brain from Planet Aros, The Screaming Skull, Missile to the Moon, The Hideous Sun Demon. I'm not going to read the rest. Oh, Little Shop of Horrors. There you go. This film holds a 70% on Rotten Tomatoes. It is often compared to Hocus Pocus as a cult classic. This film does have a strong reputation for terrifying young viewers.
There you go. Yeah, it's not I wouldn't say a cinema masterpiece, but it's a silly, fun movie.
Yep.
And it definitely does terrify young viewers. So.
Yeah. We'll have to get into that. So let's get through our terrible plot summary. Just so if you haven't seen this movie in a while, it's 90 minutes. It's on YouTube. Go watch it. Do yourself a little treat. Watch it. Otherwise, you have to suffer through my summary. So here we go. So
it flies by.
Yeah.
Like that 90 minutes is like you blink and it's gone.
Yeah, no, it's all fine. And then we'll get into our review proper. But first we have to talk about my terrible plot summary. So a long, long time ago, we see some villagers capturing and imprisoning a troll under a tree. Present day, we meet Ernest as he helps 3 children build a tree fort so the local bullies stop messing with them. Wouldn't you know it, the tree they picked is the same one that holds the troll. The troll wakes up, turns children into woods, runs through a fence, and battles Ernest in a truck. The film culminates in the resolution of the troll's weakness. Milk, not Miak, a fight in the tree fort, a super power up for the troll, and finally, Ernest learning to love the troll.
Yep. And I think it might have boosted some Super Soaker sales at some point.
Oh yeah, because like they fight them with milk, and they've got this cool Super Soakers, and there's this random... I really hope I talk about this, but we have to at some point. The random gang of kids that helps Kenny and the other bully fight them is just these 3 randos because they realized they needed 5 kids, and it's like, here you go, you have no plot development. You're just a guy in a skeleton suit on a bike.
Yep. Best character in the movie.
Yeah.
Wonder what he's up to now.
I don't know. You know what? I was thinking about that. There was a chance if we would have lived in, say, Vancouver or Toronto, that we could have fallen into acting and been on a television show. And how weird would that be if you were like, yep, I'm the skeleton on the bike and Ernest Scared Stupid. And that's just like a thing you can tell people. And you like go about your life and nothing's different. You didn't make that much, like you didn't make any money off of it, obviously, but that's just your claim to fame. And I thought that was weird. Yeah. Or like, what if you were in like, I was in...
We live in Alberta and they're filming The Last of Us. So, I mean, if that does well, who knows? Maybe we can get a cameo in the background. Be like, see that dead body? See that foot? That's my foot.
That was me. I did that. Yeah, but like it's just such a weird thing. Like you're like, when I was a kid, I was in 12 episodes of CBC's The Odyssey, and you're like, oh wow, that I forgot about that until you just mentioned it. Good for you. Huh.
Oh man, The Odyssey. Come on, there's a classic we got to get to.
All right, so our Canadian Anna is coming off. So I think I made a Don Cherry comment talking about The Odyssey. Thank you. You're welcome, CBC. So the review. So what's your favorite part of Ernest Scared Stupid?
Oof. I think just the humor. Like it's kind of silly. It's kind of goofy. It's not like Ernest can kind of get like to a point where it can just become cringy.
Yep.
But he doesn't really overstay his welcome. The editing's really quick and funny, and it does like lots of Dutch angles and stuff when he's cutting between the characters. And I think just the comedy holds up really, really well. It does it like a really, like, you believe it's a little tiny town. But yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, myself, I went, oh, well, look at this. I went the makeup and character design of the troll. I think his name was like Trogdor or something like that. He looks terrifying today. I think it holds up. But I was like, I have to pick something else because I can't just say practical effects my whole life because that's boring. So what about there's scenes where Ernest has multiple personalities. So he'll give a speech and like he's dressed as like Julius Caesar and then an old lady and then a hairstylist and then an air combat pilot. And in my mind, this is how it goes. So he says a line, stops, takes off his outfit, puts on another outfit, says another line, stops, takes off that outfit, puts on another one, says a third line, stops, and it just goes on like that for like 20 or 30 minutes. And the reaction shot of the other people as they're witnessing him, they're all like laughing and stuff like that. But it just doesn't work in real life like that. So, I mean, there's two options. Either he's literally putting on new costumes all the time, or it's his like imagination. And we're seeing his view of his imagination as he does like funny little voices. But he actually doesn't have the costumes on. But I like to think he actually takes the time out of his day to put on those costumes. And that's weird.
It's a fun thing to think about because I've always you take it as it is. It's movie logic.
Yeah.
But I've always kind of taken it as like that's just his like he's a cartoon character, so it doesn't like he can't get hurt. He can get squished.
Yeah.
Sometimes like he bends in half and his foot's like sticking out where his head is, and there's no way that should work.
Oh yeah. I guess it like goes to jail. He becomes like an electric person and like walks on the roof. So he is a cartoon character.
Yeah, he's kind of like Bugs Bunny, but like as a schmuck 40-year-old man who smoked too much.
Huh. All right. Well then. Okay, so that's my favorite part is he's a... Yeah, I did something different. How about what's your most memorable scene or part? So this one, it's just moments that stay with you. So the Trolls character design has stayed with me all these years. I think, again, it really holds up. I really like it. Miak! There's a part where they're trying to learn what his weakness is, and it's wrote in M-I scratched out letter K. And it's very obvious to everyone watching. But because it's a kid's movie, you have to try and like figure it out. And he figures it's Miak. Anyways, about the scene where the troll appears next to the girl in the bed, or just that whole bedroom scene, let's call it. Where did he go, Rimshot? How happy the sheriff is when Kenny goes to fight the troll. If you don't recall that, Tyson, go back and watch that. Because his dad is handcuffed to this car, and Kenny comes up and like saves him, and he goes, "All right, go Kenny, yeah!" And he gives his big thumb up. Really funny. Ernest's ew sound. Or just what happens to Kenny's mom. So at one point, she gets taken down by this troll, and it kind of was like, wow, he definitely cupped a feel as he pulled it to the ground. And at the end, she's just covered in goo, like German goo girl covered. Like, absolutely just... So I don't know what happened to her, but I feel bad for Kenny's mom.
Yep. Lot of trauma, probably. I think one of the scenes is like just the Super Soaker scene where all the kids gear up and are on their bikes, and it's like kind of like a mini commando, but it's like super like PG friendly because it's like kids on bikes trolling through like a grocery store, filling up their Super Soakers with milk to go fight a troll. It's
so that's yours.
That is so fun. Yeah, like I mean the character design is awesome. The way he like this scene, the bedroom scene where he like even like he almost like whenever he like captures somebody or he mimics somebody, he can just like mimic them perfectly. And it comes off really like creepy, and I think that's really awesome. Just like how they kind of they walk this fine line between like jokes, constant jokes, and like some scary stuff happening. And I think the some scary stuff happening is a lot of like the non-threatening scenes. But as soon as the kids get captured, you're always kind of like, nope, snuffed them, got them.
Yeah.
So like it's really well done, and it's like it's has like I think it has enough comedy to kind of break up the horror elements, so it works just really well. And it's just like it's super balanced, and that's a tough line. Like comedy and horror do not really go well together. It's like some of the best movies are comedy and horror, and to mix that together is really difficult. So like this movie absolutely nails it. So
okay, all right. I'm just gonna make a note that there is a scene where a girl is scared sitting on her bed. She looks under the bed to find nothing, and as she comes up, she like rolls over and sees a troll. So let's just remember that scene exists in this movie. How about what's our least favorite part? So you have to pick something out of this movie. What would be your least favorite part of this movie?
Why don't you start?
So I'm just going to go with myself. The set design of the tree, it's okay at night. It plays really well at night. It's a really cool set. But during the day, there's these bullies and they come up and it's during the day. And you can clearly see the matte painting in the background. And you can kind of see like the edge of the set. The depth just isn't there. They needed to do something, whether it was a better matte painting, maybe add some fog, just take the lights down. But you can clearly see that these like two bullies are just like standing, and when they get a cue to walk, they just start like walking from the edge of the scene. It's a really great set. Like, don't get me wrong, it looks awesome. It works really well, right? But it's just that limitation of, you can clearly tell that they kind of only show the long distance shots out one way, because if they flipped around, they'd be in a warehouse. So that's my least favorite part.
No, that's fair. Yeah, it does have like just a cheap feel to it.
But like at night, awesome, absolutely awesome. It's just
totally.
that one scene during the day that they shouldn't have. They should have done like an overhead shot of the kids walking. They should like that long kind of angled shot where you can clearly see the edge. That's the only part where, and like that's a pretty light criticism. So
yeah, I think my least favorite part is just the underusage of the two brothers, the gimmicky salesman brothers.
Oh yeah.
Like they have like a couple things where they buy them, like they sell them on all this anti-troll stuff, and like that's a funny scene. But like other than that, they basically just aren't really in the movie, besides to like have a few jokes and to cut to every once in a while.
What do you mean? They have that hit and run scene where they hit Ernest while he's in a barrel and then just leave.
Yeah.
So that's
kind of a underusage there.
All right. How about a criticism? So what's a final negative point? And then we'll get back to a positive thing before we wrap this up. What's your final criticism of this movie?
I mean, I think that it's a shame that this movie didn't really have kind of more of a budget.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I like this idea, and I wish they could have expanded it more to a point where it's like, maybe we don't wrap up all the things, or maybe because like the trolls kind of come from an egg. Like, I understand this is a modern movie cliche thing to do, but like, I mean, just show me an egg. It doesn't need to like grow or crack or whatever. Mm-hmm. Just like, show me that egg just sitting on the ground still that didn't just do anything with. Nobody needs to find it. Just have it sitting there. Yep. Leave it open.
So I want just a little bit more like intrigue instead of the happy ending. Yeah, myself, I just said that this movie doesn't really know who its target audience is. I think the troll is too scary for younger kids, but the relationships, the character development, the plot are too immature for an older audience, right? So like there's a special range of maybe like 7 to 11 that would eat this movie up, right? Like you would process the Miak as milk as the characters did. You may not even be able to get it, right? But you'd understand kind of the brevity of the situation. And like the relationships, like randomly the little girl that's friends with the boy, she kisses him and you're like, oh, is that a romance? But it doesn't go anywhere and it just kind of rings hollow, as opposed to say like a Hocus Pocus that has kind of an older a little bit of an older audience, right? And you can kind of hit those sweet spots where it can be scary and you can have the mature relationship. So that's my criticism. It's just kind of like it's a weird middle ground, right? Everything about this movie is a kid's movie except for the scary troll, which is phenomenal, and Ernest, who's a little bit like for an older audience, and it just, I don't know, it's like a weird mashup. Like, what would be a good example? It'd be like if you made almost like a SpongeBob or something like that, but put him in a horror movie that was actually kind of scary. It just like wouldn't play, you know? Yeah,
and I think that's why it's like the comedy and horror elements is a really fine line to watch or walk, and I think that's why, like, I actually, I'm like, I like the troll design, and I think it's nice when movies don't talk down to kids or don't talk down to the audience. So it's nice when like you do get something that's like, here's a scary monster that's very scary. You could have gone like super easy with it, but I think they wanted to go like a gross out horror thing, because you do see lots of them.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you make them kind of like not so scary looking, you kind of walk this fine line of just kind of dumping the whole movie into like, this is clearly made for TV. And I think that's like a problem with this, is like, this was maybe like the ABC, like the Disney production TV people That was maybe more their way, and like the Hocus Pocus was more the actual like cinema Disney. So I feel like because like I mean the Hocus Pocus budget was probably like twice or three times this movie.
Yeah.
So I feel like, if you doubled this budget, moved it over the lot instead of the ABC people working on it, the Disney people working on it, it's like just bump that up one more step. It's like you have a instant classic that everybody kind of talks about because it's kind of underrated. I don't think anyone really thinks too much about Ernest movies.
No, and again, like it's a light criticism. I'm out of final praise, and then wrap this thing up. We try to hit our time goal today. So, what's your final praise of this movie?
I think it just, like I said, I think it just does a really good job of balancing it. Like I think, given a little bit more of a audience, people probably would have loved this movie, and it maybe would get, because I know Hocus Pocus is getting a reboot. Mm-hmm. So it'd be nice to kind of see if they could do anything with this, but unfortunately, with the passing of Jim Varney, it's like there's nothing you can do. Because no one's going to redo Ernest.
Yeah,
Ernest was Jim Varney. So.
I think these are kind of like Jim Varney is a treasure. It's his franchise. Unless someone in his estate wants something done with it, I think it'll rest. Myself, I kind of just going to echo Tyson's points. Much like my criticism, I don't know who this movie is targeting. But I kind of like it for that reason. I like the fact that they made an actual scary movie for younger kids, right? Too often young adult Halloween films aren't scary, right? Like they'll have a guy in a mask and like, oh, boo, and like that's the extent they go. Like they kind of like go the whole way, right? They have lots of stakes. The creature design is awesome, and this movie wants to scare kids, like really scare them. And I respect the hell out of this movie for that reason.
Yeah, and I think one other thing is I was just kind of thinking about it is just kind of like what makes a scary movie is sometimes how the monster interacts with the characters. Mm-hmm. So like in this movie, there's implications. Like the one friend with glasses, basically he's out of it the first third of the movie, and then the other friend pops out of it shortly thereafter. So there is stakes. Like I mean, these kids it's not just that he shows up and goes rawr and I captured you and put you in a cell and it's just a bunch of kids with dirt on them standing around being like, oh no, there's the lock on the door, we can't get out, or anything like that. It's like, no, these kids are now wooden dolls that cannot speak to you.
Yeah.
So
true.
I think that's pretty awesome.
That's what I mean. Like there are stakes in this movie, right? That like there's actual stakes, there's actual creature design, and that's cool. Versus you're right, like other ones would be like the kids are captured and they're dirty. So okay, cool. Yep, Let's move on to our seconds. Now that it's time to like kids' bed, it's bedtime. It's time for adult Halloween, but not like the drugs and alcohol kind. The more scare your pants off. So we're gonna move on to our second feature, The Conjuring. I chose this movie because in my mind, these films hold up as pretty elite. If you want to talk about scary films, just modern films, the Conjuring franchise, at least Conjurings 1, 2, and potentially the third one, I haven't seen it, but in my mind are like upper echelon, right? Like they are some of the best that exist nowadays. I can't talk about the spin-offs of the Nuns and the Annabelles. They might be all right. I don't know. But that's why I chose that, just because I wanted to go a little bit more modern than classic. That's pretty much my logic there. So it was directed by James Wan, distributed by Warner Brothers. Release date was July 19th, 2013. The runtime was 112 minutes. Budget was $20 million. The box office brewing $319.5 million. The cast we see returning. Why are they returning? Vera Farmiga, Patrick Wilson, Ron Livingston, and Lily Taylor. So that's pretty exciting. Development details, and I'll let Tyson talks. Tony De Russa Grand tried to make this movie for 14 years, but kept getting turned down. Finally, someone took on his script, changed the point of view from the Purin family to the Warrens. By 2009, the property became subject to a Studio 6 bidding war, which New Line Cinema ultimately won. I'm sorry, Tyson. How about you talk for a second before we kind of go through all that? Because there was some to digest there. Do you have any points on The Conjuring?
No. You can keep going. We're going through the nitty gritty. I'll get into it when I kind of get into it.
All right, perfect. All right, sorry. I just kind of was like, if we go fast, we can talk more about the movie. They talked to the real-life Lorraine Warren to ensure accuracy of details. Both Farmiga and Wilson both visited and stayed with Mrs. Warren to help prepare for the roles. Filming took place over 38 days in North Carolina. All scenes were shot in chronological order. At the end of the film, Mrs. Warren was on record that she had no issues with the liberties the movie took in her story. I don't know if that means that they've changed since, but as of the release, the actual Mrs. Warren was like, no, I like this movie, so cool, yo. So there you go, The Conjuring.
Yes. Well, we'll see what kind of characters we have when we meet the Warrens, I guess. I don't know. For me, I'm not a big believer in ghosts. Are you a big believer in ghosts, Mick?
I do believe in, realistically, no, but I like that people believe in it, if that makes sense. One of my dreams in life, and if I ever had some money to just run a side business, I don't know, I always throw this number around, but I would love to come up with a paranormal investigation company, right? So you set aside, you get some equipment, you make it legitimate, obviously, right? And one of my dreams in life is to actually have a paranormal investigation, because I think the amount of people, the interesting people you would meet and situations you'd find yourself in would be worth its weight in gold. I would never look to make profit on the business. I would just want it to basically sustain itself, and I'd be completely happy dedicating free time into that venture. So yes.
That's fair. I mean, you don't know what you don't know, and you've so I can't speak because I've never had a ghostly encounter, but it's very interesting when you hear stories of people that do. Mm-hmm. And I'm just gonna flat out say I don't believe in ghosts, but I do know that there's freaky things that do happen. So I mean, what do I know? If I've never had one, so I can't really speak too much to it. But it's interesting that imagine your experiences get put up on the big screen, and it's really well received and popular. I don't think I would be no, this is bad. That's a very Stephen King thing to do with The Shining. It's yes, this movie's amazing and perfect, but they changed it. They changed. Where's my stupid hedges?
Oh, and I mean, I'm not sitting here defending the Warrens as they were on the record. In the fictional world, I like them. I think they're cute. They probably were con artists and scam artists. And I think leading and being oh, you're possessed and haunted is probably wrong morally. I again, coming at it more of an analytical thing. When they're going through the people's house and they're oh, you know what? That sounded probably just these water pipes. They're not held down and that's why they rattle. That's the sound you're hearing. In my mind, that's what more encounters are. But I've also had scary ass moments in my house where all of a sudden you're oh, that's terrifying, right? So,
oh, totally. I mean, I've never met the people, so I would love to have a conversation with them.
I definitely wasn't under the influence during this story, but a couple weeks ago, or I guess last weekend, there was this knock on my door, and I went and there was no one there, so I shut the door, and then sure enough, there was a knock again. And I went and looked, and I was what the fuck's what's happening? So I was watching from my kitchen to see if someone is coming and screwing with me. We have this stupid Halloween decoration. As the wind blows, it knocks on the door. But that was scary. I had a really scary 25 minutes of my life because of that. So scary sounds.
Hey, freaky things do happen.
All right, so now that we know Tyson is a bit of a skeptic, he's more of a Scully, and I'm more of the Mulder. Let's get into the terrible plot summary of this movie, which is hard to find. I had to buy a DVD. I got a 3-pack, so I get to watch all the Conjuring movies at some point this year, so that's pretty exciting. So terrible plot summary of this movie, and then we'll get into our review. So we meet the Warrens, real-life Ghostbusters, as they do their thing. Meanwhile, we meet a family, the Perrons, who move into a big old house in the country. Strange things start happening to the family, one of the daughters sleepwalks, then they find a creepy basement, and there's a random clapping sound from parts of the house, and someone standing in the daughter's room. After the oldest daughter is attacked by a very real ghost, the Warrens come in, find out that a witch was hung in a tree, come face to face with the witch in the basement before sending a request to the Vatican for an exorcism. Before they can hear back, Mrs. Perron tries to kill one of the daughters, and Patrick Wilson must save her from the demon before everyone can live happily ever after, except for the little girl who is traumatized because her mom tried to kill her that one time.
Yep. And locked her in the crawl space in the basement.
Yeah. Good times.
Good times. Well, and I think as for a story, it's this is pretty well managed. It's very quick, contained, and I think nothing. I don't know. I think they create like it's a very believable story, and it's very neat, and I think like the pacing's very very well done so far, and like yeah. I don't really have too many criticisms of the story too much.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. Okay, so let's get into the review of this movie. So, what is your favorite part of this movie?
Man, I think the atmosphere. Like, I think like as much as I kind of was harping on the Warrens and the real life equivalents, I like them in the movie. I think that they're a very like nice couple that's just trying to just help, and I think that they come off very genuine and very caring, and that's a strong proponent of the movie, because you just like you believe that their relationship is kind of like what really helps them. It's like a huge asset in what brings them to the table, and it's neat that it's like these two characters that you don't get a lot of romantic entanglements or whatever. You totally believe their stories. So like, I mean, I think the actors are just amazing in this movie. So.
Oh yeah, like Farmiga and like Wilson are like top notch, and I think that's also one of the strengths of this like franchise going forward is just like the acting chops going on in here. And actually, Patrick Wilson, most of the work he does, like if you want to just find good horror movies, just look at his IMDb. If he's in a movie, it's probably going to be interesting because he's a very gifted actor and he does like weird stuff. So I like that. Yeah, myself, I like again the atmosphere of this movie. It has patience, right? There's a slow build of tension. They don't rely on jump scares. I think there's two, when the witch is on top of the dresser and the fat lady in the basement. But other than that, it's like slow builds and tension, right? And like there's this clapping game, and you see these hands come out of this dresser and clap. And then the mom goes blindfoldedly to check what's going on, and the daughter appears behind her, and there's nothing there. But like the whole time, you're like, what? Why? Like, why does this scene exist, right? And like you get so creeped out watching it, and I think they like that they just didn't make the brah sound, right? Like they didn't take the it approach where they build tension and then they wreck it with jump scares. They kind of just like, well, there are no jump scares. The movie is just like creepy, right? So I like that. How about most memorable scene or part? So some of our entries are when the Farmiga falls into the crawl space and is attacked by the ghosts. I remember actually being terrified the first time I saw this, and I had to look away. So that's pretty good. The dog dying. It's not good when the dog doesn't want to go in the house and then dies. Pictures fall off the wall. The hand coming out of the coats and clapping. The person behind the door scene, or the feet hanging from the tree.
Yeah, the hide and seek clapping is a fantastic scene, and I think it shows the vision of kind of James Wan. Like he's super creative. He knows he can use lighting in a certain way that he can almost blur out some details so they can almost change the set and they be done interchangeably, and you can see almost like the way he would structure it.
Yeah.
But the way it plays out, it's so nice. Like characters are like act like real characters, but it's shot in such a way where you can see the action that's happening, and it's but it's also very creative. So when things that need to be a little bit supernatural can happen, they just seamlessly happen, and you're not like pulled out of it through a jump scare. It just kind of just like, no, there's some clapping hands in the dark, and the character that's holding a match instinctually turns around to see them, and their instinct of turning around blows out the match.
Yeah.
And it's like that's just perfect pacing. It's like it's so neat and tidy, and it's just awesome.
Yeah.
Well done.
The only other memorable scene is she hears something, feels something. I forget if it's just she wakes up or something grabs her, and then she goes and looks under the bed. She comes up, there's nothing. She goes to pull the blankets on her, and the blankets are pulled off of her, and she starts freaking out. You know, a callback to our earlier scene where there was both kind of a different take on the what's under the bed trope, which I think is just very common in scary movies. You know, like they kind of play that. And I thought it was kind of neat poetry. It rhymed.
Yes. Well, a lot of horror movie setups are kind of the same. It's the character's trying to see what's going on, but as the camera's playing it's playing the master manipulator, where it's moving and directing your vision. So it blurs, and he plays with that whole thing where like when she falls down into the basement, and then she's looking in the mirror, and then she sees the head turn around, and then she turns around to see it, and then drops the mirror.
Yes.
And there she is. It's like, it's playing with where your vision's at and where things are relatively to it. So it creates a very visceral experience.
Well, and that's a very slow
but
burn
it's not
too.
overly done. Yeah,
because
exactly.
how many? So they have this little mirror on this music box, and as it twirls around, they say, "Oh, the ghost is behind you" or something. So like they show that 3 times before there's actually there's actually never a payoff, right? It's you keep looking, and it's a slow swirl. And you keep expecting something to appear, nothing appears, and then it's not until she drops and turns around that and like Tyson said, it's really good. How about what's your least favorite part of this movie?
I think just sometimes the action, like whenever somebody's threatened, like physically threatened, I don't feel like they're physically threatened.
Yeah,
I feel like it's more of like jostling around, and then something will happen. And you're just kind of waiting for the next thing to happen. Like, you're never really like, oh my goodness, he's gonna get attacked, or if she gets a hold of him, he's screwed. She's gonna get stabbed or whatever. It's always kind of like there's that lure of, oh, something bad might happen, but nothing bad ever really does. And it's like there's like the action, it just kind of falls flat. So.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. It's kind of just like it. Like I think it's good. Maybe the pacing, right? And it's just kind of like it starts off pretty scary. Like the dog doesn't want to come in, and then it's just like scary things happen. And it's almost one of those things where like, why are they staying in this house? At one point they're like, oh, we can't afford to move or something. But like, I don't know if it's that terrifying. You maybe figure stuff out, right? So it would be if like the witch was more playful and like lured the family in until it was like too late or something. But like that's I don't know.
And I understand they don't want to tip their hat too soon to be like to show the possession thing, but I mean,
but it happens in like Poltergeist, right? Like at first they're like, "Oh, look how cool this is! Look at this chair getting pulled," right? And like it's not until Carly Beth disappears in that movie that you're like, "Oh no, we need to like get somewhere." And like I kind of feel like if they would have done that route, right, where like, "Oh, our house is haunted. Look, like the pictures will fall off or something," but it's just like vengeful from the beginning, and like at a certain point you're like, "Yeah, I'm out. Bye."
Yeah, no, it's. Calls into question, but like, I mean, if it is a possession, you have one character actively be like, no, we need to stay because of this. Like, I think it what's Sinister with Ethan Hawke.
Oh yeah, where, he has and that's he like basically he's like, don't like get out of the house, end this now, end your investigation, and you'll be fine. But he's like, well, can't be that bad, right? So
yeah, exactly. And he just has that it's that need to stay that gets him in the edge.
And I think that's like the worst part. So how about a final criticism of this film?
Yeah, I can't really think too much besides just the goofy action. That was the main thing that kind of like just stuck out with me. I think that they handle most things well. Like the sound design, it's not like super in your face with loud horns trying to scare you out of your seat to get a reaction. It lets the action do it. But I think just sometimes when I never really feel like the threat.
That's fair. Like myself, I'm just gonna say the character development, right? Like we have 5 girls in this film. I don't know what all of them do, right? Like there's 2 oldest, one who's attacked. There's another one, I don't know what she does. There's the middle girl who might be the victim and like gets dragged away from the mom and like looks like she's the most terrified. And then there's the 2 younger siblings, one who sleepwalks and one who's friends with the witch. That's kind of it. Like the dad leaves her portions. When he shows up, he's just like the stoic father figure. Lily Taylor, the mom, her performance is like absolutely great. I cared about her like when she's possessed and like she's being terrified. I feel bad for her. The rest of the family I didn't care much for, and I realized that it's a real story. There was 5 girls. I don't know, maybe take them out of the movie, you know, like 4 of the girls moved away. I don't know. I think that's probably like the weakest part of this film.
Yeah, I mean, kind of is what it is. But you're right, not a lot of characters have things to do, and especially since they were there for like over 30 days or something, it's like you can kind of get to know these characters.
Well, and I guess it goes to show that really it's not the Perron's story, it's the Warrens, right? So it's I don't know. And how about a final praise in our dying minutes of our scary podcast? What's a final praise of this movie?
I think that this movie sets up a fantastic franchise that makes you want to come back and see what these Ghostbusters next story is. It is kind of a more traditional take on Ghostbusters. Like Ghostbusters is a super sci-fi and comedy. This is more like realistic.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I'm gonna say, I concur with that. Right, it is kind of realistic. Yeah, like what would mix paranormal investigation company? It's probably gonna be more like this than Ghostbusters. Sadly enough, I think it's a modern horror masterpiece. Right, like I assumed it was Blumhouse because Blumhouse does such interesting cutting edge horror tropes. They respect the genre so much when they make a film that I just assumed it was a Blumhouse film. So when I saw it with Warner Brothers, I was like, that makes sense. It's probably why it's sequelized a little bit. And I don't know, I can't stand and tell you that the Annabelle movies are good or not, but I would have to give it a fair chance. Now that I've got most of the movies, maybe it's something I'll go back and watch. I think it's one of the better horror franchises that exists, right? It makes sense. It's clean. You don't have the killer coming back in every single movie, even though they swear they killed him this time, right? Clean. It's to the point. Makes you uneasy. What more could you ask for?
Yeah, I think it just works.
Yeah.
I think that it's well shot, super competent. It's a good horror movie.
Yeah.
And I think that like that's kind of hard to do, and I think it's a horror movie that's rewatchable and is pretty. It's at the tip of the hat because I mean most horror movies, once you watch them, you'll probably never watch them again.
Yeah, and that is fair. Awesome. So with that kind of wraps up. That's all the time we have, unfortunately, for this Halloween special. Hopefully it was good. Hopefully you watched something spooky today. That's all I could say. Happy Halloween.
Yeah, happy Halloween. I think I don't need to say James Bond anymore since it came out, so
yeah.
You're all free.
Nice. We did it. There we go. That cross has been lifted off your shoulders for a year and how many? 22 months? Good job.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Long time.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. So with that, happy Halloween. Stay safe and talk to you guys next month. Bye.
Bye.